What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is a series where I go into great detail with all of the stats of every one of the weapons in Black Ops 4 multiplayer. In today's episode, we're finally going to be moving into the sniper category, and we're going to kick it off with the Paladin HB50. And first up, let's have a look at the damage for the Paladin. Now the Paladin actually deals 140 damage, which means technically it's not a one-shot kill, unless you hit a multiplier zone, which does extend beyond just the head, unlike all of the regular guns in the game that only get that increased multiplier if they're hitting headshots. Sniper rifles are different, they get those multipliers to other body parts, and this is what decides where their one-shot kill zones will be. Our rate of fire with the Paladin is the slowest in the sniper rifle category at 44 rounds per minute. It's just a little bit slower than the Koshka. And our aim down sight time, which is an extremely important stat for sniper rifles, is 400 milliseconds. And this essentially means if you're quickscoping, this is your realistic time to kill. Technically speaking, sniper rifles have a time to kill of 0 because the timer starts when you fire your first shot, and if it's going to be a one-shot kill, then your time to kill is 0. But in practical terms, if you're quickscoping, your time to kill is equal to your aim down sight time, which in this case is 400 milliseconds. Keep in mind, this aim down sight time is the slowest in the sniper rifle category, and it's tied with the SDM. Now getting into our one-shot kill areas, as you can see here, assuming we're using no attachments, the one-shot kill area of the Paladin is going to include the head, the neck, the upper torso, the mid-torso, and the upper arms. Anywhere in the hand or the lower arms or lower torso and below that will end up being a hit marker, assuming the enemy has full health. With the Paladin though, we do have the option to use the high caliber attachment, which extends the multiplier zones and therefore will extend your one-shot kill area. If you're using high caliber 1, that will extend your one-hit kill area to the lower arms as well as the hands. This is actually fairly helpful. There are quite a few situations where you'll end up hitting somebody in the hand if he turns at just the right time or something, and therefore high caliber 1 is a good option. But we can go even further and put high caliber 2 on, and when you do this, it extends that one-hit kill area all the way down to the upper leg. So anywhere in the upper thigh or up will end up being a one-shot kill with high caliber 2. The only way you're going to be getting hit markers is if you're hitting below the upper thigh. Out of all of the sniper rifles that are currently in the game, this is the best one-shot kill area you can get. As for the Paladin against people that are using armor, I was actually very surprised to find that armor will have no impact whatsoever on your one-shot kill area, even if you're not using the Fmj attachment. This brings us to Hipfire, and as you can see here, all of the sniper rifles have the exact same Hipfire spread, and this is a very, very wide Hipfire spread. For obvious reasons, you don't want people running around no-scoping constantly and accurately, so hipfiring is generally not going to be a good option with any of the sniper rifles. As for our idle sway, this is very important with sniper rifles, and as you can see here with the Paladin, it has a ton of idle sway. If you're not holding your breath, your scope is going to be all over the place. However, we can cut that down with the stabilizer attachment. If you have stabilizer on, your idle sway will be reduced very significantly. In addition to the idle sway when you're already aim down sight, I also want to take a look at how centered you'll be when you initially aim down sight. This is extremely important for quickscoping because if you're keeping your target centered and then you aim down sight and you're off target, this will cause you to miss a lot of shots. Once again, without stabilizer, as you can see, I'm aiming down sight in a different spot every single time, and I'm not moving my aim around at all. This is just due to that idle sway. With stabilizer though, this also helps in this area very significantly, and you can see here that you're aiming down sight much closer to center every single time. This brings us to the next thing I want to look at, and this is how long you can hold your breath for with the sniper rifle, which allows you to stabilize your aim. Without attachments, you can only hold your breath for 4 seconds with the Paladin. However, if you're using the Stabilizer 2 attachment, this will increase the amount of time you can hold your breath for all the way up to 10 seconds, which is an extremely long time in Call of Duty terms. Moving on to our magazine capacity, with the Paladin, it's only 5 rounds, which really isn't too much, and this means we have 15 rounds of total starting ammo. Also with the Paladin, unfortunately, we don't have any option to use extended mags or hybrid mags. Our reload add time, which is the amount of time it takes to reload without any unnecessary animations at the end, is a little bit on the slow side at 2.12 seconds. However, we do have the ability to use the sight loader attachment, and with this, it significantly reduces your reload time all the way down to 1.22 seconds, which is a great improvement. In addition to that, with this sight loader attachment, it does give you the ability to reload while aiming down sight, which I don't really think is the greatest perk out there, but just keep in mind it does give you that ability. This brings us to our sprint out time, which is quite slow at 300 milliseconds, but with Gung Ho we can reduce that down to 220 milliseconds. But keep in mind, with sniper rifles, the sprint out time is basically irrelevant as long as it's below our aim down sight time, which it clearly is even without Gung Ho. The reason behind this is if you're sprinting out and you want to fire that shot as fast as possible, you can't get an accurate shot off until you fully aim down sight, which is going to be 400 milliseconds, and therefore at that point your sprint out time would have already been completed. So don't bother using Gung Ho with the sniper rifle if you're trying to get a faster sprint out time, because it's only going to help you if you're going for a no-scope, which isn't a good idea if you remember from the Hipfire section. The next stat I wanted to look at that I feel is important with sniper rifles is how fast can you switch to a pistol. Without any perks, you can switch from a Paladin to a Strife in 617 milliseconds. This really isn't too bad. With dexterity though, we can reduce this down to 500 milliseconds, so a slight reduction in the amount of time, but realistically speaking, it's only a little bit faster. This brings us to our movement speed, which is 95%, which is quite respectable. I honestly thought it should be a little bit slower with the Paladin, but it's pretty fast. It's the same as all of the assault rifles out there. And same thing goes with our aim down sight strafe speed. I was surprised to find that it's 40%, which is decently fast considering it's a sniper rifle. And with that covers all of the important stats that you need to know for the Paladin in Black Ops 4. But now let's start getting into some of the attachments, and then we'll also get into my best class setups for it. When it comes to optics, generally speaking, I just use the default scope. This is the one that I prefer using most of the time. I don't usually mess around with any of the other optics, with the exception of the iron sight attachment. Every now and then, I find it to be really enjoyable to go around with the iron sights. It feels more like using a slug shotgun at this point, and I just find it to be a nice change of pace and a fun thing to do on the side every once in a while. As for the other attachments though, you guys saw earlier the power of High Caliber 1 as well as High Caliber 2. I often like combining these two, although I also feel like I don't always need to have both of these. Sometimes I'll just run one of the High Caliber attachments, and as long as I'm aiming high enough, I won't be getting hit markers at all. As for the FMJ attachments, generally speaking, I won't run just one FMJ. If I'm going to run FMJ, I'll run both of them, because with the Paladin, this is actually quite special. You can shoot UAVs and counter UAVs down in literally one bullet if you're using both of the FMJ attachments, and you can also take choppers and snipers' nests out in like 5 shots. You can take streaks down really easily with this. It's actually one of the best ways to shoot streaks down, but that's usually more so reserved for a special sort of class that's designed for that exact reason. Getting to the stabilizers, generally I'm not really going to be holding my breath for very long, so I don't usually use stabilizer 2. However, stabilizer 1, for me at least, is a crutch attachment. I feel like I'm missing shots all over the place if I don't have stabilizer, and then the moment I put it on, I can suddenly snipe just fine. So I definitely like using stabilizer on pretty much every class that I use with the Paladin. And this just leaves us with the sight loader, and for me at least, I just stay away from the sight loader. When I'm sniping, I'm generally fairly laid back about it. I'm not going for quad feeds and clips and montages and stuff, and therefore I usually don't feel like I'm in a super stressed situation where I need an instant reload. If you are somebody that is going for clips and montages, you'll probably want to lean towards that sight loader. But if you're more of a traditional sniper and you more so just like hang back and pick people off, sight loader is completely unnecessary in my opinion. So finally, this brings us to a couple great example classes I have for you guys. This first one is just kind of my bread and butter sniping class. Out of all of the sniper rifles and all of the classes you could make, this is the one that I would generally go towards if I decide to snipe. With this, we're using both of the high caliber attachments, and this means I basically never get hit markers with this because I'm generally not shooting at their knees. We're also using the stabilizer attachment, which like I said is kind of a crutch for me on the Paladin just because that idle sway is so high without it, as well as the fact that you don't really aim down sight towards the center of the screen unless you're using that stabilizer. For our secondary, we've got the Mozu. The Mozu is excellent for finishing off kills if you do happen to get a hit marker, or if you just get into a situation where you miss a shot with the sniper rifle and you don't have time to rechamber. The Mozu is great for killing people really quickly. Our gear with this is the acoustic sensor. For some reason, when I'm sniping, acoustic sensor is just the way to go. If somebody's sneaking up on me, that gives me plenty of time to switch to my pistol if I need to, or just prepare for them and be ready to quickscope them or aim down sight in advance. For perks, we've got Scavenger, simply because you only get 15 rounds with the Paladin, and if you're hanging back and picking people off with it, you can actually burn through 15 rounds fairly quickly, and therefore I like to have Scavenger equipped. Our secondary is going to be Dexterity, just for that ability to swap to our pistol that little bit faster, which can often make the difference in a gunfight. And finally, we've got Dead Silence on this, just because sometimes I want to be a little bit aggressive with this, and I do want to push up towards the enemies if I'm trying to quickscope a little. and that just makes it so it's much harder for them to detect me. And also, dead silence works great in combination with acoustic sensor because it allows me to hear the enemy footsteps better when I'm on the move. So this class setup, I feel, is just a nice, well-balanced sniping class. I really enjoy using this one. Now let's get into the second one. This one's a bit more specialized, and just for fun, with this, we're using the iron sight attachment, so I'm treating this more like a slug shotgun. For my other attachments, I just have one of the high caliber attachments. Generally speaking, I'm keeping my gunfights relatively close, and therefore I find it's much easier to just aim for the upper torso. I won't really be shooting them in the lower torso too often, and therefore I find I don't get too many hit markers with this setup. We're also using stabilizer once again on here. I did test this with iron sight as well, and it was the same results. Stabilizer is very important if you want to aim down sights very close to center at least. Our secondary is once again going to be the Mozu. I just feel like that's the best secondary to use when you are sniping. And with this, we happen to have an extra point on our class, so I used it on the speed loader for the Mozu. Our gear for this one is going to be stim shot because I am going to be a bit more aggressive, so it just allows me to get back in the fight a little bit faster. And our perks are going to be exactly the same as they were with the previous class. We've got Scavenger, so we can stay on a streak a little bit longer. Dexterity, so we can swap to our pistol a little bit faster. And finally, Dead Silence, just so the enemies can't pick me up as easy. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the Paladin. I'd like to know in the comment section below, out of all of the sniper rifles in the game, what do you guys think about the Paladin? Personally, I think it's the best, most versatile sniper rifle in the game. With this gun, I don't get very many hit markers. It's almost always a one-shot kill, which is awesome to have. And I just feel like, in general, it feels the best. The Koshka for me will be a close second, but if I'm ever trying to take sniping seriously and actually contribute to the team, I'll be using the Paladin. As always, if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes of Gun Guides, I've covered basically all of the weapons now, aside from the sniper rifles and the secondaries. I will leave a link to the playlist down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.